Clippers.
Welcome everyone to the South Coast Community Council meeting. Today is Monday,
Something.
May 22nd, 2023. You all please stand. And this is Jason, my neighbor, who's going to lead us. Stand up here, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
This is just for the sound. He will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Fiscal officer will take the roll.
Kavanaugh. Here. Kawicki.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
South.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Hammond.
Here. We have minutes from our meeting on Monday, May the 8th. Any changes or corrections to our minutes from Monday, May the 8th?
Move to approve.
Been moved by Porter, seconded by Canton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have passed. All right. We have two visitors here today. Jason, would you like to give a little brief introduction of yourself and tell everyone why you're here?
Hi, my name is Jason Chen, and I'm a current junior.
Whoop, wait a minute, Jason, let's use this. This
Yeah.
doesn't amplify the sound, but it's good for the people who watch on YouTube. You're now famous. You're all over the world by it at about 7:03 in the evening.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jason Chen, and I'm a current junior and thus a rising senior at Chevron Falls High School. And I'm here as part of my end of book course project for the U.S. government, in which we to participate in some form of a civil action. So thank you for letting me join you today.
We'll try to be civil.
Introduce your mom to us also.
And this is my mom, June.
Hi, I don't think I need that. I'm good. My name is Jan Lee, and I'm a South Russell resident, and I become American citizen a couple years ago, but like I'm very ashamed to say this is my first time to a council meeting, and a very that will be very great experience for me to see like what's going on like as a U.S. citizen, as the South Russell resident. Originally, my purpose is to bring my son to here. He is, I can tell like he's a little nervous. He forgot one more thing. Like number one, AP government. He has some work like a project related from the school, and would like to learn from the real kids here in South Russell. Number two is like he's looking for the summer intern or volunteer in the village. So that would be really great experience. And when he is looking for the college and he's looking in the engineering part and also political science, I told him, this is a really totally two different opposite area. Like I don't know what kind of the college you are looking at, and I don't know which area you really want to focus. And I hope this the mayor is very generous and kind enough to let us to join the meeting, and then can personally meet my son and get to know each other more and see what we can contribute to the village and what the opportunity we can get in the village. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
Where was your original home?
In China.
In mainland? Or
Yeah, mainland China, yes, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Jason, is that Mr. McKenna's class? The history class, is that Mr. McKenna?
AP, so that would be what Ashley or forming the equipment engineer.
Okay.
All right. We are now to section, finished with the visitors. This is the mayor's report. I put some information in front of you. Let me give you a little rundown as to what's happening. Eagle Scout project labeling the trails in the park is complete. And a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Dan Driscoll who was an Eagle Scout in 2009. He brought his fiancee up to show his used flag collection bin, to show it off to her. And I ran into his dad, and his dad is very proud that Jason's talking. And that was from 2009. It was still going on. I wanted to put out compliments to our part-time police officer, Skylar Rossbach. He had an impressive interview and never got it mentioned when he was here being sworn in 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to mention that he did a very nice job. The Park Appreciation Luncheon invitations, I think you got one. It's all colorful there, and they're going out this week. Tomorrow night, the Terminal Tower will be lit up to honor first responders. Wednesday at the Triangle, there will be First Responders Day. It's a day all across the state of Ohio, which is very little celebrated. But that'll be at the Triangle at 5 o'clock, and then it's followed by an activity over at yours truly for the fire department. I think you got one of those also, those agendas. I gave you the Blossom Time Parade information. A lot of different information there. Check it over. If you have questions, please let me know. We did not get the area that I wanted to do the staging, which would have included parking. So, frankly, I just tell you, you're on your own with parking. Good luck. We intend to park some of our equipment at the high school the night before to see what we can do there. Culverts. The newsletter went out, which explained the culverts are coming, and hopefully people read it. Look for a little bit of chaos and not confusion. It's just traffic's going to back up. I don't think it's going to be any worse than when they put the gas line in down at by Bainbridge and by the Heinens, but that's going to be starting soon, and it's going to go on for a while. We've seen the big culverts back there. So that's a big thing coming soon. We had our tax information board meeting with Mrs. Meter, and Danielle's got that covered. Now, EPA. I don't know how it happened, but we got a call on Thursday afternoon. A guy from the Ohio EPA says, I'm coming up Friday to look at your facility and look what you've done. So let me try to explain that.
He wanted to look here.
What's that?
What did the EPA want to see?
He wanted to see what we've done.
With the project next door here?
He did all of them. He came up early. Of course, now if I can't get this to, let's see what happens over here. Anybody got an idea why that's not projecting all the way up? Okay. I don't know, I've never had this happen before. Jason, you're the youngest person here.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Getting closer. All right. Let's go back here a little bit. Okay. Just to refresh some of you that weren't on council when we got involved with all this. Our first 319 grant was two parts. It was $186,000, and what our first expense was right here behind Village Hall, right out here. We spent $37,000 of our dollars to put in 4 little pools to catch water and different sort of vegetation to catch water that's flowing from east to west. Thank you, Chief. It worked okay, but when we had one of those 100-year storms, it was not enough. And the water went over the road. It did not stop water from shutting down the highway. The EPA people who walked through here looked at what we did, looked at what was done over the summer with CT, and basically said any attempt by us to recreate a wetlands is not going to be successful. So his advice, his advice is to consider doing something behind the police station. We have a creek there, and if we wanted to create a wetlands, that would be the place to create the wetlands. It's one of the things we discussed years ago. That was just his thought. So instead of trying to spend 20, 30,000 to recreate it, he said, you're not going to be able to do it. And that's his opinion. Eric is in Madison tonight. He will be able to hear what I have to say. And we'll discuss this at the Public Utilities Committee meeting next Friday. All right, second thing they went out to see was a picture of perfection, and that was the wetlands that we created at the park. It's in the northwest corner, and the water's doing fine. The area is fine. We have a couple trees around there that died. All in all, he said you couldn't have done anything better. And again, that cost us about $30,000 to $40,000 of our money. Okay. Next thing, and this is not ours. This is the Madison Cemetery. This is what ours should look like. We have a couple issues. I think some of you have probably noticed by now that the grass is growing great down here, and it's not growing up at Manor Brook. And I think what probably happened, and I'm not a farmer by any means, is they hydro-seeded, and then we had a frost. So when we walked this last Friday area, it looks awful. A couple of neighbors have complained about it, where's your grass? Because you got grass growing here. So we'll talk with Eric next Friday, but I think what we'll probably have to do is have him come through and replant the grass. That was one of the issues. This is what it should look like. The other issue came up, two of the streams that flow into the Manor Brook area. And this is the Ohio EPA, this is their opinion. They were not dug deep enough. That the amount of water coming in there should have required the channels to be deeper. He said the solution is simply put more stone and more rock in. And this is what Madison did at their cemetery, just put some more rocks in. You never really know the whole flow. They think they mathematically have it. So to try to tell you, it's this one right here. The water that's coming from the Manor Brook Manor Brook Whitetail shared pond. This is scarred. It's down maybe 2 to 3 feet, and it's pretty much chewing up the dirt. So this is what, we just need more rocks in here. Same thing over here. This is where it's coming out of the woods here. And as we walk through it all, he said, just get some more rocks in it. Other than that, he was impressed with it. An additional comment, we stood up here, and I told him about how we're planting these trees. He's like, why? And I said, well, there's a lot of different reasons, but he saw no need and saw no help from the trees besides maybe just a little bit of screening. Okay, and then the other thing, and I don't know, but they had already been to Pawpaw. And I don't know if they came here because of Pawpaw. I'm not going to guess, but they asked a few questions about Pawpaw and the amount of dirt that's being piled there. So we will get a letter from the Ohio EPA telling him what he saw in his walkthrough. Again, very nice, very pleasant, but just concerned about what was going on.
Was it one of the district guys, Mayor?
These came out of Columbus. These came out of Columbus. Now, they did not make a special trip up for us. They had 3 other locations they were going to. It was just a case of, they're coming up on a Friday morning and they're going to look at different things.
Given the fact, Mayor, that the Pawpaw is a private land, why are we even being approached by Ohio EPA as a village?
He didn't approach us. He just happened to say, I asked him, I said, do you want to see Pawpaw? And he said, no, we've already been there. So that's it. He did not bring it up. Wasn't point of conversation. It caught my attention that he had been there. So I thought, okay.
Ruth, do you know if anybody from your HOA
This is
was?
the very first I've heard of any of this.
Yeah, I don't know, and you may have seen it just driving through, so I'm not too worried about it. Again, it was very nice, very frank, very friendly.
So how much time did that take for you to squire him around to all our places around here?
Well, maybe an hour and a half. And this is one of the things they do. They come and check to see what you've done. I don't think we've ever had anybody check on the original 319 grant. But they were just saying, coming up here, take a look. I think the fact that the Manawha took us, we're in our 5th year of that, and we got delays and we got extensions, so they were pretty happy with it. Okay, Chief, I'm jumping around here. Chief just came in from a school safety forum agenda, and maybe you'll say a few minutes when it comes.
Sure.
To the police chief. Okay, we got the appreciation luncheon. We talked about the parade, newsletter. That's it. Questions of the mayor?
I do have one question, Mayor, and I see the signs that we have, which I guess is for the Blossom Day Parade. But I had a question from somebody who, is a resident but has a business outside of South Russell. What are the parameters to have the sign displayed in the parade? Is it for South Russell residents, South Russell businesses? Is it for any business, even though you have no connection with South Russell? What is the plan?
That's a good question, because last week at the Architecture Review Board, we were talking about this, and they had heard about it. And one of the guys said, could I put my business in? And I said, yes, you're a South Russell resident. Since it went in the newspaper, I would say if somebody wants to get a sign in, they're still calling, still asking. If somebody wants to get a sign to promote their business.
Okay, what if you're a resident of another township and have no business in South Russell, but it's in Chagrin? Is that okay?
No.
Are we accepting? So that's not okay.
There wouldn't be any connection there.
So you have to have a South Russell connection, either
Yeah.
through, you're either a resident with a business outside and/or it's a business in South Russell. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Okay,
Mayor,
yes, sir.
okay, with regard to the Blossom Time Parade,
Yes.
I note that you're saying there's 8 spots on the wagon. So obviously you're not there and Councilman Canton isn't there, but,
Bruce not there.
And I'm riding with Gus.
okay, so that's 4 of us, but you asked about spouses.
Yes.
So are spouses to be invited to this event?
Yes, I would say if your spouse, yes, we have empty spaces.
I want to make sure if I bring my spouse that she's got a spot.
And I just learned today from the ones that have them bring their own blankets. They
Yeah,
don't
okay,
sit on the
that's
floor.
fine. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Other questions? Jason, these are high-level discussions here. All right, Mira, our fiscal officer.
I distributed a report to Mayor and Council. There are some appropriation amendments from the Finance Committee that were suggested, which were included in my report and will be on the legislation for your consideration later. Additionally, I want to let you know, for the toilet for the park, we have the Chagrin River Watershed is applying for the grant for us. And they wanted me to provide some kind of confirmation from the village that we are going to move forward with this toilet, this bathroom. That will help the chances of getting the grant. So that would be in next year's budget. We haven't approved next year's budget, so I didn't know if we can get a motion or something I can give them so they can include that with the grant paperwork, but it'd be some kind of commitment that we're going to move forward with doing the restrooms.
So what would that be? Beside a motion that we set aside the money for next year? Or
That's what they would like to see. And I don't know what the total is at right now. Last I heard it was like 86,000.
Why don't you make the motion for 100 grand?
Maybe a resolution would be enough,
Um,
our intent.
We did do a resolution,
to apply for the
to
grant,
apply for the grant.
but they want something saying that we've budgeted for
Right,
it.
and in that resolution, we did include that we were certifying the funds or committing the funds because it was like a form from NatureWorks for ODNR.
Mhm.
But I think they want something in addition to that.
Refresh my memory, we don't have a reserve fund for that project, do we?
No. So I don't know if you want to consider that, maybe do that later, but so that's out there. Also, I distributed the spreadsheet with the 5-year capital project things to council. I don't know if you had chances to look that over, if there was anything I was missing. And then I also want to know, high level, it's not a commitment, so 5 years, looking forward on the road program, what would you like me to kind of put aside for the road program? 350 like we've done in the past, 400, 500, I mean, you can adjust it later, it's not a commitment. But this is just kind of for forecasting purposes, what do you want annually for a road program?
Going forward for 5 years?
Mhm.
Well, the road levy brings in what, 236,000 or something like that?
Yeah.
So maybe 500,000 per year?
And that's just to earmark it, you can always
That's a
adjust.
good guesstimate for now. More than this year.
And then I forwarded the email we got from the county regarding our OPWC grants. I forwarded to all of council that we have to get these projects done this year or we will not get the funding. So we are committed by contracts that we've entered to do the culvert project and the traffic light. And if they're not done by the deadlines, we will lose the funding. And what they consider complete is the project's done and we've filed the final paperwork. And the one was due by July 1st. I think the traffic light's December 31st, and then the other one is July 1st.
First to the 22nd.
Is that the culverts?
Is it?
Isn't that the culverts?
That's the
Yeah.
culverts.
Yeah,
And we're planning on that in June, as I recall. So we
So I-
might make it.
I'm hoping, I forwarded it to Eric, but I haven't heard back on that. I also want you to know I've contacted ADP at the county, so it's something I've talked about with the finance committee about, we're gonna need some kind of IT support. The police department is covered, Bruce Sugar Valley Dispatch does their support, but we just have 4 computers basically for the service department, building department, in my office, that we need some kind of IT support, backup, everything else. So I contacted them today, and the chief and I will meet with them to try to explain what it is we need, what we have, and then get a cost and find out what all it is they can offer.
So that comes through the county?
Yes, the county does it for, like they can do it for the townships and that. I know Russell Township just joined them, and so did Bainbridge in Auburn. So they can supply IT support to your backups, and then I have to find out what all they could do, but it's beyond us now. So we need help. And then lastly, regarding the purchase of the corner property, I'll be going to the bank on the 30th in the morning to do the wire transfer for that purchase. So that's all I have.
Questions of our fiscal officer?
I just want to congratulate you on finishing your program.
Yeah, nice
Certainly,
job.
all manager. Good job.
Excellent. Well done.
Thank you.
Finance Committee, floor is yours.
Thank you. Finance met on May 12th. Our next finance meeting is June 16th, I believe, at 9 a.m. I think I have that right. I hope I do. You got the credit card report in your packets, and so I would make a motion to acknowledge receipt and acceptance of the credit card report from May 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed.
Okay, I was not in attendance at the meeting for meter, but I did read the notes, which did suggest that we had talked in the finance committee about setting a floor for a minimum cash balance to maintain for the village. That floor was generally set at $1 million. The meter report suggested that if everything goes according to plan, that we would have approximately 2.1 million at the end of the year as a cash balance. So we would be double our floor at this point. So I just want to point that out, that thought that was very positive.
Okay,
Questions?
Just one statement, and that might be able to facilitate us in order to make a commitment to the folks that are looking for that grant commitment of funds. Perhaps we can entertain establishing that reserve fund, which would then earmark that
For the
money.
bathroom, you wouldn't want to do a reserve fund for money you're going to spend next year. That's more for putting aside for the future.
Okay,
By the time we set up the fund.
next year is the future. So,
Well, shall we do that now?
I'll leave it open to discussion, or what do you think?
I'll put a motion on the floor for council to commit to completion of the park restroom facility project in 2024 in the approximate amount of $86,000 total. So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Ruth, you got your bathroom. Here we go. Questions of the finance committee? Solicitor, floor is yours.
I have nothing to report.
Street committee, you're up.
Street committee, our minutes for the May meeting, we're in your packet. Our next meeting is June 2nd at 7:30 a.m. in the service department office. We did have something come up since the last meeting. The service department has switched to 4 10-hour days. I spoke with Tim today. I think there may have been a little bit of confusion on Tim's behalf by moving forward quickly on his 4 10-hour days. He was under the impression that our committee had approved it already. We had not officially approved. We moved it to HR back in February. So now we have a situation where the guys are working 4 10-hour days. I think we need to maybe have the mayor and the HR committee sit down and figure out how we're going to move forward with this, whether we do or whether we don't.
Okay. I'll speak on behalf of HR. My understanding was that the 410s was only related to the culvert projects. And that was the specific reason for creating the 410s. If somebody's created something different, then that's not my understanding.
My understanding was all summer
No,
was the request.
no, that was not.
Mark, you might have more.
I do recall this coming up in the street committee meetings. I think it was on one of the agendas, and I know we talked about it. The idea was that it would be much better to replace culverts with 4 10-hour days
Yeah.
because the efficiencies of doing the work were such that the 10-hour days gave you a better result, more culverts were replaced. And logically, replacing culverts typically happens in the summer. So I can understand why this might have happened. But I do recall the streets committee being in favor of this approach, but we have no authority to make that happen. That would have to be up to the mayor, I suppose, or possibly the mayor and HR to do that. So at least from my viewpoint, it appears that the 4 10-hour days is working in the sense that culverts are being replaced at a more rapid rate. But I don't think it will extend into the winter. But this is something that I think streets and HR should hash out. How long is this going to go? And is there an endpoint? And there should be.
Okay, well, my understanding was we were only talking about 30 culverts of some sort, and that this was a week's project or 2 weeks project or something like that. But it's obviously it's morphed into something more than that, so we need to get into it.
I think it has, and maybe not intentionally, but I think it has. I think there's some miscommunication between various stakeholders. That being said, I believe the staff over there is under the impression they'll be working 4 10-hour days for the entirety of the summer. And an issue that does create is that we are not open as a department on Fridays.
I agree 100%.
So, I mean, I guess when it first came up, and even for the callers, shame on me for assuming that there would be a schedule where they alternate. Some guys work, Monday through Thursday, some guys Tuesday through Friday, whatever. But it's come to my attention that there's 4 of them. They believe all 4 have to work together. If you're down 1 or 2 guys, it just doesn't work. So there are a lot of layers to this onion that need to be unpeeled and figured out if we're gonna make this a success moving forward.
Is there a history or a past practice of this?
Not to my understanding, but
No.
Just maybe in the
Service
police,
department.
maybe you guys used to do
Police are
four
different.
tens.
Well, we're covering 24/7, so we're covering more of an area.
Oh, yeah.
if it's, if it's project specific, which you felt it was,
Yep.
I would never have that impression, so those are two different things. I'm more comfortable with that, but we had the same scenario, we have other departments,
Others were interested in
Administrative.
the four tens.
building department. who want to work
And we
with us.
started discussion of this at the last HR meeting and we didn't come to a conclusion. So again,
Well, we'll contact Tim and
Next.
find out what the situation is. Well, we can't let it go on.
Can I just say, we did have 2 issues last week. The whole department was out on Wednesday at training, Friday they were off. Wednesday during training, a boulder fell at the intersection of 306 and Bell. Police department called the service department to ask them to move the boulder. They were all out at training, we had to call Chagrin Falls. And then a truck driver came here for a delivery. We're walking around the parking lot, didn't know where to go to deliver stuff, so they went to the building department, and between Ruth and the chief, they were able to help the truck driver. So the department was shut twice last week, Wednesday and Friday.
My understanding is that both of these things happened on a Thursday, and they were off doing their training, so 4 people were gone.
I
But
think training was I don't know.
you contacted Tim, I think, Chief?
Our officer on the road contacted Tim. He advised that they were in class, and then Tim reached out to Chagrin Falls, and they sent a loader to remove the bolt.
Was the road shut down?
We had a lane block. It was right in the middle of, the through lane on Bell Road eastbound.
It was about a half hour that the road was affected.
And maybe 25 minutes. Yeah, close.
I did ask the street commissioner about the delivery. He had said that he had given the company instructions where to pour it. The driver was hesitant because there's different material there already, different kind of
Type of
rock.
stone, yeah.
That's what caused the pause. So unfortunately, it didn't go as planned. So
Well, I think Tim told the deal was they would dump it in the number 2 bin. There was 304 stone there already, and this was like 411 stone. And as far as Tim was concerned, you could put them both together in the same bin, but the truck driver noticed the bin had different stone. He wanted to make sure, or she wanted to make sure that she wasn't dumping the new stuff with the old stuff without authorization, which I think you gave her, right?
We got to figure it out.
Okay.
Did, how was Ruth involved in this?
Because the truck driver didn't know where to go, so she went to the building department. And then-
she told,
And then Ruth called Tim and then told her where to put it. And then she didn't think that was the right place, so she went back. And then the chief saw the truck there, so it just became.
I guess back to the 410s, my question for the solicitor is this an action of council or is this an executive decision where the mayor makes the decision? Because I don't want to overlap our, abuse our responsibility of doing it.
If I can interject with what the handbook says,
he asked the solicitor for an opinion, and we hear from her.
Sure, so the handbook does say that it's supposed to be the appropriate committee, council committee, so
Okay.
of the street department. I'm not sure actually, would it be HR, would it be street? It is street. And the mayor, so it has to be an agreement
Okay.
as determined by the appropriate council committee and the mayor. But, I mean, keep in mind, if it's a council committee, that would have to be in an open, public meeting.
Sure,
Okay,
but that wouldn't require further counsel.
in our employee handbook, it does not require that. I would highly
I guess that's surprising.
recommend we consider it.
I didn't know that.
Because it's not just a work week, I don't know if you saw the actual section, it also allows the appropriate committee of council and mayor to change the pay period, which,
Yeah.
let's keep in mind, that would be extremely administrative headache to
Yeah.
change a pay period just, but just on a council committee and mayor's, agreement, an administrative nightmare. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I know you guys are thinking of making some changes to the handbook. Might want to consider adding some sort of council approval into changing the work.
Okay.
I think that would be,
That's,
and right after that, issue where it talks to the committees, it says usually it will be considered 5 8-hour days. Now, I find this an intriguing conversation because 2 Fridays ago during the Finance Committee meeting, I noticed that the building department was not manned by anybody. It had been closed down the entire day. When I initially asked the question of Councilman Berger and the mayor, who were present at the Finance Committee meeting, Councilman Berger indicated his first response was, "Is there a problem?" And the second was, "This has been approved by the Streets Committee." I then went to the chairman of the Street Committee who said it was not addressed in the Street Committee. The mayor then said he saw people working and asked them how many hours they might have to finish up a job. And they said an hour and a half, so he authorized them working that day and I guess every day of that particular week, and it appears the subsequent week here. So it appears like there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, and to Mark's point, where he says 410s allows them to do more work on a culvert, well, it's the same amount of hours if you had it 5 days a week. So, you know, I don't know, I'd like to hear a justification how this benefits the residents by not having a manned department. If this is in fact a path we go down, then perhaps it should be elective in nature with the concurrence of the appropriate committee and the mayor, that every department in the village have the opportunity to go to 410s. Is it the benefit of the village, or is it benefit people's side jobs, which are busy during the summer months? We did have an issue with a police officer that, you know, was potentially being a little loose on his hours with respect to accommodating a side job. So I would say, let's be careful with this, and let's not go down the wrong path for the wrong reasons. So that's all I'd like to say.
To readdress the culvert thing, would the culvert people work from light to light? That's longer than an 8-hour day they'd be working? Is that
7 to 5.
7 to 5? So it's a 10-hour. Yeah, whoever's doing it, yeah, so it's a 10-hour. Okay.
At least, yeah. I mean, that's up to them as a contractor
Yeah.
to do the 4 culverts, but I can say this. I saw the crew working on a culvert on 306, not far from Ralph Richards' place, and all 4 of them were doing the job, maintaining traffic flow, doing the culvert, and then doing the driveway. So all 4 street department people, including the street commissioner, he was on the backhoe, were doing this, and it looked to me like they were doing it fairly quickly, given the work. So in answer to your question then is, what's the benefit? Less traffic disruption for a culvert replacement on 306. That's one example. I imagine there are others.
I would hope.
I just have 2 questions from a payroll perspective. So if we're on 410s now in that department and somebody takes a vacation time or comp time, then I subtract their bank by 10 hours, depending on the week?
We're on 410s. I'm jumping ahead to the HR. With 410s, it's going to be until the culverts are done. And there's 30-some culverts, so you're going to need 15 days of 2 a day to get the culverts done.
Their productivity is better than that. They've done 3 or 4. It depends on the culvert, where it is and how deep it is and all this other stuff. But I think they're doing more than 2 a day during this period.
But her question is, how does she debit the day?
Because everybody gets so much time, right? So if it's a 10-hour week, then that week they miss a day, I take 10 out of the bank, and then it just comes into, and then what if something happens on Friday, we have to call them out? Is that a 4-hour call out?
Well, it would be. It'd be like a Saturday or a Sunday.
So I just want to make sure I understand, so I'm doing this properly.
We don't have a 24-hour man service department or administrative building department. Saturdays and Sundays, nobody's in the service department, I don't think. Police are different because they're 24/7, but if you have a 4-day work week, 410s, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's nobody over there unless they're called in, and it would be a call-in situation, I would think, unless HR has a different take.
Well, I think you would have to, because at that point they would be, well, they'd at least get overtime because they've met their 40 hours.
Yeah.
And I would suggest to you that it is the street commissioner's job to tell you how comp time is to be applied if necessary, okay?
They put it on their timesheets.
But I know, but the street commissioner submits them with his approval. And so he should look at them and say, okay, this is how, if there's comp time being used, he should sign off on what that is approved for.
Right.
So, if that becomes a bigger problem, then I think we need to address it in HR.
Well, we can also talk about it at our next street committee meeting.
So can I just ask, has it been determined tonight by the HR committee or the street committee and the mayor that these are 4 times for the remainder of the culvert project, or how exactly, because I have not heard yet that that's been determined and agreed to.
I mean, quite honestly, I don't think we've really
Talk about it.
talked about what the scope of the 10-hour day looks like.
I mean,
And
it was always done in terms of culverts.
Yeah.
I think another week, the end of next week, would be proper for 410s.
Well-
If Tim thinks it's beyond that, then that's not correct.
You know, I gotta say, when this question first came up, I reviewed a lot of street committee and HR committee meetings, and nowhere did it discuss the 10-hour issue being related to culverts. So if this discussion took place, what was the forum that this discussion was discussed in?
It was a street committee meeting, I remember being on the agenda for sure on one meeting.
in February,
And the minutes don't necessarily reflect every word that's spoken, depending on how they're kept. So the street committee meeting for that one agenda would be the one that addresses it.
I can tell you my recollection wasn't, I believe this was February, was it was brought up. to Basically said, it sounds like a good idea, interesting idea, but I think this is an HR matter. That's where we left it, sent to HR.
And we did,
And maybe we mistakenly sent to HR, maybe we shouldn't have.
we did discuss it at the last HR meeting, and a decision was not made.
So we have a meeting on June the 1st at 1 o'clock, HR, right?
Yep.
Mr. Berger, anything else on this issue?
No.
What do they do in the meantime?
That's,
Tomorrow, what hours did they work, and the day after and the day after that?
Well, maybe streets committee and the mayor could approve retroactively the 410s until the end of next week, when the street committee will take the issue up at its meeting for further discussion.
My opinion is 410s for culverts only, right now. Let's see how this
Well,
goes.
and I think that's what Councilman Porter was saying.
Let's do it to the end of next week.
Yeah.
Okay, let them get it done.
And then streets will revisit the issue, and depending on what the report is from the street commissioner, it may come to an end, or it may need to be extended. But the mayor will be in attendance, so will the 2 street committee members, and then we would go from there.
So it's short duration through June 2nd.
Correct.
Would that be correct? Is that acceptable, Brady?
I think you should do a motion.
I move that the 410s for the street department, including the commissioner, be extended from today until Friday, June 2nd, whereupon the street committee and the mayor and the commissioner will discuss this in further detail to determine whether it should be extended beyond June 2nd. So moved.
Let's move. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Kavanaugh. Discussion.
in the meantime, between now and before we vote, sorry, Mr. Mayor, could you speak or meet with the street commissioner, maybe hash out a plan for,
Yeah.
if he's trying to push for this for the whole summer, what that looks like?
I don't like that. I don't know. I don't like the whole plan.
Okay.
I like the culverts. That works well.
I am concerned about dropping 20% of the time that was usually open during the weekdays.
Mhm.
I am concerned about that, but I understand.
The culverts
Unique
make sense.
scenario.
So to June 2nd, and then we'll have the meeting, and the street commissioner will make his proposal if there is one.
Okay.
Otherwise, it ends June 2nd,
And did
which is a
you,
Friday, by the way.
did you say from today until June 2nd, or are you saying retroactive to when they started the 14th?
Retroactive to when they started. I think we have to go retroactively. I think I said that, didn't I?
I don't know
I
if
don't
we-
know.
I don't think we have a
Retroactive
choice.
today, sorry.
All right. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I am opposed.
Motion passes 5-1. Couple points of clarification on the day that Dennis referenced, May the 12th. The building department shuts down at noon on Fridays. shuts down meetings at Laura's lot. If Ruth has earned enough hours, she goes home early. But I don't know, that week, I think we had an ARB, pardon me. That week we had,
She may have had personal time too, I think, Mary.
the only thing we had that week was planning commission, so she was tied up for probably about an hour and a half. So she may have left at 3, or sometimes she just says, hey, I'm gonna leave at this hour, lets me know. Just says, I'm coming home, doing that.
To clarify, the question didn't have anything to do with the building department. It had to do with the streets department and the service department.
Okay, Chris Bell, oh, you're still on, buddy. Building committee.
Building committee met, your May minutes are in your packet this week. Our next meeting is June the 1st at 8 a.m. in the building department. That's all I have. Other than anything Jerry has to add? Nothing?
Questions of the building committee? Before we begin, Chief, as always, I don't even know why I went to the school safety meeting because I knew you were there and you would handle it. Just the way you don't talk like a school administrator. You lay it out, bang, bang, bang. Very nice job. Thank you. It was very effective. No offense to school administrators, but he laid it out very clearly.
I appreciate that. I'll follow up with the Chagrin Falls Schools at a safety school forum and addressed district-wide security concerns. I just conveyed the information related to our ongoing security measures during school. It's a collaborative effort. We all work together, and our visibility and our interaction with the staff, students, and parents are very much appreciated by the schools. You guys have been doing a great job there. We are there every day at arrival. We're there every day at dismissal. We've got a special detail during the course of the day until the end of the year for some extra visibility. And during our normal course of patrols, we're in and out of there quite frequently. So I believe Gurney is very well protected, and our guys do a great job doing that. So thank you. The only other thing I wanted to mention was thank you, Mayor, Mrs. Coons, the Royers, and some volunteers. They had a first responders picnic for all of our officers and their family members yesterday at the Pavilion. So thank you very much. That was a part of First Responders Week. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Questions over police chief?
Do you, Chief, do you ever have to help at the high school at the end of the year?
No, we primarily take care of Gurney. If there is an incident or a request for us to come for anything, we will go on a mutual aid basis. But we don't normally have any normal routine practice at the school.
So have you been going to Gurney all year?
We go many years. We've been going for a long time. So
At pick up and drop off?
pick up and drop off every single day. Now, the only time we wouldn't be there is if we're handling an emergency elsewhere. But we are there every.
I didn't know
single
you
day.
did that.
Yep.
Good.
It's a good service. Visibility means everything.
Other questions over?
Does Gurney have a resource officer?
Well, the school district does, and he will pay a visit to Gurney on occasion. His primary location is the high school, intermediate school. The middle school, the high school and middle school is one campus, correct, Jared?
Yes.
The intermediate school and Gurney are the external schools that he visits on occasion. But yeah, we don't see him very often at Gurney, but again, we're there to supplement.
There is a Chagrin Falls officer at the intermediate school now.
Yeah, that's the special detail. Right. Yeah. So
Plus, we have a retired police officer at Gurney.
we do. We have one of our South Russell police officers at Gurney School has been there for a number of years since he retired. It's Officer Kramer, and it's good to have somebody on the inside.
And he functions as a police person or?
Functions as a teacher.
Teacher,
believe it or not.
okay.
An aide, a teacher's aide.
Other questions of the chief? Safety Committee, Jerry, you're up.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. Safety Committee will meet on June the 1st at the police station at 9 a.m. Chief, before I make the motion for Cops and Kids and Bike Rodeo, you have funds earmarked for those two events.
We have community service funds in our budget to assist us with that.
Very good, thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve Cops and Kids Fishing Event on Sunday, June 11th, 2023, from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. at Lake Louise.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, a motion to approve the bike rodeo event to be held on Sunday, June 25th of 2023, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the village campus.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
I do have a question. So how many young ones do you get for the bike rodeo? Do they register?
Yeah, they registered. Last year was our first event. We had probably 65 kids last
It's
year
a
at the
lot.
bike rodeo, and then we have about 100 or so at the fishing event. So yeah, it's pretty, very, very well attended.
So is bike rodeo what they, like akin to the old safety town type
So
thing?
similar, we set up the village campus with a course where the kids, go through safety courses. The officers are there teaching them, proper riding etiquette, and there are also some, courses that require, speed, some require slow speed, maneuverability. So it's just basically an educational 2-hour event, very short-lived, but it's a very, it was a very popular event.
I bet. So what ages do you get, the little ones?
We get everything from probably 5 years old on up to maybe 13.
Okay.
It was a good crowd.
All right, HR Committee, Ruth, you're up.
HR, our next HR meeting will be June 1st at 1 p.m. And unless Mr. Berger has some things to comment on, that's about all I have. The minutes were submitted.
I'm good, thank you.
Questions of the HR Committee? All right, we're at the Property Committee.
Properties will also meet on June 1st at 10 a.m. Minutes were submitted. Jerry took over for me on a couple things. Well, I guess we have a separate Parks Committee thing. On properties, Charlie Robinson is moving forward on his Eagle accomplishment. And he has the words ready for, both the mayor and I believe have read them. I've read them. For the Rarick Cemetery, he's making the kiosk so that when you go up the steps to Rarick Cemetery, just off to your left, you'll see a kiosk that says this about the Raricks and this about the time frame, etc. So I went with him yesterday. He's made great contact. Met with him yesterday afternoon, and his grandfather, who used to be involved in Chagrin Scouts, and we put an X marks the spot for Tim to look at and see if this was okay placement, because under some of that ground, you don't know what's what. It's so beautiful. That Rarick Cemetery is so beautiful. So moving forward on that.
Other questions of the Property Committee? You want to talk about the solar lights or the light poles or nothing?
I'm not ready because I need to
Okay.
find out where they purchased them still, but yes.
All right.
So
if
the
you-
flagpole is still out there.
So if you haven't gone to 103 Pawpaw or 20 East Bell Meadow, drive by, they have solar lights on the top of the flag.
Mayor, Ruth asked me to, and our patrols to drive by. We had an officer take a couple photographs of the ones in question, so we have those. I'll pass those, I'll text those out to you guys.
Yeah, 20 East Bell Meadow was by far better. Yeah.
Okay, we are now at the Parks, are you doing Parks Committee?
Jerry handled it.
Sure.
Jerry handled it
Sure.
for me.
Thank you very much. Parks Committee met the evening of May 16th at 7 p.m. here at the hall. And the membership welcomed our new member, Greg Gann. Gonna work out beautifully. The committee agreed that Sunday, September 17th, 2023 will be the date for the Fall Festival, and the rain date will be Sunday, October the 8th. As you can see from the minutes in your packet, responsibilities were handed out to the individuals on the committee and what the responsibilities have to be. Okay, so I'm going to ask council to vote and approve the Sunday, September 17th, 2023 date for the Fall Festival. And that's historically between 1 and 5 in the afternoon. And same to approve, in case we need it, a rain date of Sunday, October 8th of 2023 from 1 p.m. until 5.
You moved, second.
Moved and seconded by Kavanaugh. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Yeah, that's all we have.
Any questions of the Parks
Do
Committee?
an anti-rain dance, because I don't want October 8th.
All right, we are at the Public Utilities Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Utilities will meet on Friday, June 2nd at 9 a.m.
Questions of the Public Utilities Committee? All right, we are at ordinances and resolutions. We're at second reading on buildings. Back to you, Chris. You can be real.
Well, this is planning commission, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so it's building.
Second reading of an ordinance amending section 260.02B of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell by providing for the appointment of up to 3 alternate members of the planning commission and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
All right, we are now, Chris, you're still up as the street committee.
Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance approving the agreement with Specialized Construction, Inc. in the amount of $492,268 for the Village of South Russell's 2023 road program, authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the Village of South Russell and declaring an emergency. Move to waive further readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Licky.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Canton.
Aye.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Licky.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Canton.
Aye.
Ordinance passes. All right, finance.
Introduce and consider for adoption an appropriation amendment increasing street maintenance expenses $318,206, safety fund expenses $4,000 even, road and bridge fund expenses $44,291, and decreasing income tax transfers $217,000 even, and special land and building fund expenses $575,000 even, declaring emergency and waive further readings.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Licky.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Canton.
Aye.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Licky.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Canton.
Aye.
The appropriations passes. You're still up, Chris.
Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending transfers decreasing land and building $537,000 even, and increasing large equipment fund $100,000 even, and street maintenance $220,000 even, declaring emergency, waive further readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Licky.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Canton.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Licky.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Canton.
Aye.
All right, we have the bills list. Dennis, will you take the bills list for us?
I will, but I would, before I make the motion, I'd like some clarification. I'd hate to introduce it with some questions on the bills list. So, I know that the street commissioner is not here, but maybe the fiscal officer can provide some clarity. but there were two bills on the bills list, and one was for tree removal at 28 Annandale Drive and tree removal at 104 Lakeview Lane. Could you provide any clarity to what that was for, Danielle?
Tree removal and
I mean,
I can clarify the 28 Annandale.
what was that?
That was, they approached the service department, there are multiple dead trees on village property, which is also abuts their backyard where their children play. And since it was village property, they asked for them to be removed. The committee did approve that.
Okay.
I don't recall the other off the top of my head.
It was
Because-
Lake, was it Lakeview?
That was another one. But the reason I raised the question is, I drove past, it didn't appear like they had anything to do with right-of-the-way issues, and at least one of them was in a backyard, so I was wondering.
Sure, no.
What?
I don't recall the other one, I'm sorry.
And the other one was Lakeview Lane,
Yeah.
okay? And we removed a pine tree, chipped brush, hauled chips and wood from the site, and cut the stump as low as possible.
I don't remember exactly, I remember something about something falling in the right of way.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was you or somewhere else.
Could have been storm damage.
You can see that, the old tree, you can see where it went across the road. I think it probably came from like 103 across to 104. Because when I went down there was all of a sudden there's the tree just cut right alongside the road.
Actually, on the
date of the bill. Obviously, it's
On the date of the bill that you asked the question, that date of the bill is for. I'm looking. Invoice date 4/20, so
I'll look through the police reports and see if we had a tree down across the road or something like that.
that's the invoice date, but I don't have the date of the actual service. Okay. Given that clarification, I'd like to move forward and make a motion to ratify the bills list of 5/15/2023 in the amount of $65,384.42. So moved.
Second.
We need somebody to second by Bill. Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galiki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Powell.
Aye.
Berger.
Abstain.
Canton.
Motion passes. We are at new others.
Kavanaugh.
Just some brief comments. I'm going to meet Thursday at 9 a.m. with Deb Ladke and try to get this history update hammered out. And on that note, Bill and I both noticed in the obituaries, Pat Hosmer passed away. And she and her husband, Phil, are the ones that did the 1990-92 histories that we use on the website. So she's gone to her reward. And since it is Memorial Day weekend coming up, just a quick thought for our 3 known South Russell fallen heroes. Alvin Smith, who lived up where Bean's backyard, it's Beanie's uncle, who died actually on land after he'd served in the Navy, 1944, young fella, 20 years old. Roy Warburton, 22 years old, from Pawpaw Lake. He died in France. His remains were shipped back here, and he's buried at Acacia. Alvin Smith, I'm sorry, I should have said, is buried in Evergreen in Chagrin. Roy is buried at Acacia in Mayfield Heights. And last, Bob Plazik, who was, I believe he graduated in 50 or 51 from Chagrin. And he died in Korea. And again, a very short life, 20 years old. His remains were shipped back home, and he's buried in Calvary Cemetery in Cleveland. And the Plaziks are the ones that own the expansive property that they have given over to Chagrin River Watershed Partners out on Bell Road. So these are all families that my folks knew, and just wonderful, and you can imagine how it tore them apart to lose their young ones.
Thank you, Ruth.
Is that all you had? Galiki.
None.
Porter,
None.
Bell,
None.
Berger.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'd like to thank the solicitor and Danielle for their research and thoughts on the cemetery. We have concerns, obviously, at Rarick Cemetery with the headstones and whose responsibility it is, and some of the history that they have provided and some of the legal background is helpful. I would hope that council and the mayor would agree upon either a committee or assigning this project to one of the standing committees to decide how we're going to handle maintenance of these ancient headstones. And whether we're going to do that or we're going to let them fall where they fall and that's what it is. So at some point, hopefully you will address that, but
I'd be happy to serve on that.
Well, it's a good discussion, that we keep it under property. You know,
Sure.
it is a property.
that's fine with me. I just think, I know this issue has been raised in the past. Danielle, you mentioned that in the previous administrations, the decision was it was private property owned by the cemetery, by the family for that cemetery plot, and therefore there was nothing for the village to do. I don't know that that necessarily makes sense going forward, and to let, especially the Rarick Cemetery fall into disrepair, I don't think is an appropriate way to go. So asking properties to take this on and to move forward with it, I think is a wonderful idea, and I appreciate your efforts.
I needed more to do.
That's it.
Captain, you're older.
Yes, thank you. By virtue of chairing the safety committee, I'd like to echo the chief's remarks and thank Joe and Bob Royer for sponsoring the first responders picnic yesterday. I would also like to thank the students and the teachers at Gurney Elementary for their artwork and for their wonderful cards that they created. The officers and the chief really appreciate it.
And Jerry, thank you. You were there as well, and you and your wife were part of that as well, setting up and organizing. So thank you to you as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention you before.
Oh, you're very welcome. That's all.
That's all.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Moved by Kavanaugh, seconded by Berger. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Jason, don't leave yet.
It's that exciting.
Jason, this was a fast short meeting. Try out, you guys have more often.